"Someone get that dog away from the coffin," the preacher shouted. We were in the middle of a funeral for a girl who was far too young, but her dog, Ranger, was refusing to let the service continue. He wasn't just mourning, he was growling at anyone who tried to move him, his ear pressed flat against the white wood. The family thought it was a tragedy, but a group of bikers in the back row saw something different. They realized the dog wasn't saying goodbye. He was listening to a heartbeat that everyone else had given up on. If you've ever seen a dog refuse to leave a place that felt final, stay with me. And if a dog has ever reacted in a way that made you question what you were told, tell me in the comments. Stories like this are why people subscribe here. I'll recount this the way it happened, slowly, carefully. The service was meant to be simple. A small town, a small chapel. Flowers placed too neatly for something that wasn't supposed to happen this soon. The coffin was closed. White, light enough that 6 people carried it without effort. The girl inside was young, too young for silence to feel appropriate. The family dog arrived late, pulled gently on a leash by a relative who hesitated at the door like they weren't sure animals were allowed. No one stopped them. The dog walked straight down the aisle, didn't look at the people, didn't sniff the flowers, didn't hesitate. He went directly to the coffin and lay down against it, pressing his chest to the wood, head resting along the edge like he was guarding something warm instead of mourning something gone. At first, people thought it was grief. Dogs do that, they said. They don't understand death, they said. But when someone tried to pull him away, the dog growled, low, controlled, warning. Not fear, not confusion, refusal. That's when the bikers in the back of the chapel started paying attention, because they'd seen that posture before. And it didn't mean goodbye. At first, the family tried to handle it quietly. A whispered apology, a gentle tug on the leash, a soft, embarrassed laugh meant to reassure everyone that this was just grief playing out in an awkward way. "Come on," someone murmured. "Let's step outside." The dog didn't move. He stayed pressed against the coffin, chest flat to the wood, front legs braced, head low. His body wasn't trembling. His breathing wasn't erratic. He was steady. When the leash tightened again, he growled. Not loud enough to disrupt the room, just enough to make the point clear. The person holding the leash froze. "He's never done this before," she whispered. The officiant paused mid-sentence. A few heads turned. The room shifted with that subtle discomfort that comes when something unscripted refuses to correct itself. "Maybe give him a minute," someone suggested. The dog lifted his head slightly and sniffed along the edge of the coffin, slow, deliberate pulls of air, then lowered his chin back down in the exact same place. Same spot, like it mattered. A man in the second row leaned toward his wife. "He thinks she's still there," he whispered. One of the bikers in the back didn't answer. He was watching the den. He'd seen dogs mourn before, had buried friends with owners that whimpered, paced, circled graves, had watched animals shut down in confusion. This wasn't that. The dog wasn't searching. He wasn't lost. He was anchored. Another relative stepped forward, voice tight. "We can't let him disrupt this." He reached toward the dog's collar. The dog snapped his head up and growled again, longer this time, eyes locked, teeth barely visible. Not attacking, guarding. The man pulled his hand back quickly. The officiant cleared his throat. Perhaps we continue." But the dog shifted then. He rose just enough to place one paw firmly against the side of the coffin. Pressed, a dull thud echoed in the quiet room. The sound cut through every thought. "Hey," someone said sharply. "Don't—" The dog barked once. Sharp, commanding. The sound echoed off the walls and died quickly, leaving silence behind it like a held breath. That was when the bikers stood. Not all at once, not dramatically. 2 of them at first. Leather vests, heavy boots, faces weathered in ways that came from living too close to things people don't talk about. One of them murmured, "That dog ain't grieving." The other nodded slowly. "No." They stepped into the aisle. A murmur spread through the chapel. "Who are they?" someone whispered. They didn't answer. They stopped a few feet from the coffin and crouched, not toward the man, but beside him. Hands open, palms down. posture low and non-threatening. The dog turned his head just enough to see them. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He stayed. One biker spoke quietly. "Hey, boy." The dog's ears flicked. "What's his name?" the biker asked softly. "Ranger," someone replied from the family. "Ranger, boss iron," the biker repeated. "Good name." The dog sniffed once toward him, then returned his attention to the coffin. The biker's jaw tightened. "He's not blocking people," he said quietly. "He's blocking time." "What does that mean?" someone asked, voice rising. "It means," the biker replied, standing slowly now, "he doesn't think this is finished." Another biker joined them, then another. Soon 4 stood near the front, not intruding, but close enough to feel the tension radiating from the dog's body. "He keeps checking the same spot," one murmured. "Yeah," another said, "same place every time." The dog lifted his head again and pressed his nose to the edge of the coffin, inhaling deeply. Then he pawed once, same spot. The officiant shifted nervously. "We really need to—" "No," one biker said calmly. "We need to pause." "This is a funeral," a relative snapped. "You can't—" "You ever see a dog guard a dead thing?" the biker asked, not raising his voice. The room stilled. "You ever see one refuse to leave it?" he continued. "Not mourn, not cry. Guard." No one answered. The dog barked again. Short, sharp, then lowered his head and pressed his ear against the wood. Pressed. The biker's face went pale. He leaned closer, not touching, just listening to the dog's behavior. The rhythm of it. "Do you hear that?" he whispered to the others. "Hear what?" someone demanded. "Nothing," the biker replied, "and that's the problem." The dog's tail was rigid now, body tense in a way that wasn't aggression. It was readiness, like he was waiting for a cue, for help, for someone else to see what he saw. The biker stood and turned toward the family. "How long ago did she pass?" The question landed hard. Someone hesitated. "Last night." The biker nodded slowly. "And who confirmed it?" Silence. The dog barked again, louder this time, and placed both paws against the coffin. The sound echoed. A few people gasped. One of the bikers swallowed hard. "I think," he said carefully, "this dog is telling us she's not gone." The room erupted in voices, denial, anger, disbelief. "That's impossible. You're out of line. This is cruel." The dog growled, low and steady, never breaking eye contact with the coffin. The biker didn't argue. He just looked at the dog and said quietly, "Then why hasn't he let go?" They tried everything that wouldn't make a scene. At first it was patience. A few minutes passed, then a few more. People shifted in their seats, whispering to each other, casting uneasy glances toward the front where the dog lay unmoving. The dog didn't relax. He didn't sigh. Didn't settle deeper. Didn't close his eyes. He stayed locked in the same position, chest pressed to the coffin, head angled just enough that one ear rested against the wood. Listening. A family member approached again, this time slower, voice gentle. "Ranger, sweetheart, come here." The dog didn't respond. She took one careful step closer. The dog's head lifted immediately. His eyes met hers, not angry, not wild, but firm. He growled just enough. She stopped. "I think he's scared," someone said. One of the bikers shook his head. "No, he's focused." Another biker leaned closer to the first. "Look at his breathing," he murmured. "That's not panic." It wasn't. Ranger's breathing was steady, controlled, like he was conserving energy for something specific. The officiant wiped his brow. "We can't delay much longer." One of the bikers turned toward him. "What's the rush?" The question caught him off guard. "Excuse me?" "You said she passed last night," the biker continued calmly. "No burial scheduled today. No transport waiting. So what's the harm in giving this dog 5 more minutes?" The room went quiet again. No one had an answer. They tried distraction next. Someone brought a blanket, another held out a favorite toy. A bowl of water was placed a few feet away. The dog didn't even glance at them. One biker crouched again, closer this time. "Ranger," he said softly, "if she's gone, you don't have to guard." The dog didn't move. Instead, he shifted his body slightly, angling himself more firmly across the coffin, blocking the front entirely. Guarding. The biker's jaw tightened. He looked up at the others. He's escalating. What does that mean? Someone snapped. It means, the biker replied evenly, he's not being stubborn. He's responding to time passing. As if to prove the point, the dog lifted his head and barked once, sharp, echoing, then immediately lowered his ear back to the same spot. Same place. Again. One of the bikers pressed his lips together. That's 3 times now. 3 times what? A woman asked. 3 checks, the biker said. Dogs do that when they're confirming something hasn't changed. The woman's face paled. You're saying... I'm saying he's not waiting for closure, the biker interrupted gently. He's waiting for intervention. A man near the aisle scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're reading too much into a dog. The biker didn't respond to him. He stood and walked slowly around the coffin, keeping a respectful distance, watching the dog's head turn to track him. Watch this, he murmured. He stopped directly opposite Ranger. The dog stiffened, growled, not at the man, at the air near the coffin. The biker swallowed. He's guarding all sides now. Another biker nodded. He's sealing the perimeter. The words sounded absurd in a chapel, and yet everyone could feel it. The room had changed. This wasn't a service anymore. It was a standoff. A relative lost patience. Enough, he said sharply. I'm taking that dog outside. He stepped forward decisively and reached for the leash. The dog reacted instantly. He rose to his feet in one fluid motion, body blocking the coffin completely now, head low, teeth visible for the first time, but not snapping. Warning, pure and unmistakable. The man stumbled back a step. Jesus, he muttered. One of the bikers moved between them, hand up. Don't. You don't control this? The man snapped. No, the biker agreed calmly, but the dog does right now. The dog barked again, loud, commanding, and then did something that made several people gasp. He pawed at the coffin, hard, twice, same spot. The hollow sound rang through the chapel. A woman cried out, "Stop him!" The biker's voice cut through the noise. Listen to him. Listen to what? Listen to the pattern, he said. He checks, he guards, he escalates, then he checks again. The dog lowered his ear to the wood once more. Pressed. Held it there longer this time. The biker felt a chill run down his spine. He's not hearing nothing, he whispered. He's hearing something wrong. What does that even mean? Someone demanded. It means silence where there shouldn't be, the biker replied. Dogs hear breathing, we can't fight. Heartbeats, we can't. The room erupted again, voices overlapping, denial pushing back hard against fear. This is cruel. This is a funeral. This needs to stop. Through it all, the dog never broke focus. He didn't look at the people, didn't react to the shouting, didn't retreat. He stayed pressed to the coffin, guarding something invisible with everything he had. One of the bikers turned to the family, voice low but urgent. Who found her? The question cut through the noise. A pause. Then someone answered quietly. She was found at home, in her bed. The biker nodded slowly. Was there an autopsy? No, the voice said. They said it wasn't necessary. The dog barked again, sharp, almost angry now, and pressed his ear harder against the wood. The biker closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. This dog, he said, is telling us she's not done yet. The room fell silent again. Not because they believed him, because no one could explain the dog, and he wasn't stopping. The first thing that changed wasn't the dog. It was the room. People stopped whispering. Not because they agreed, but because no one knew what to say next. The kind of silence that settles when every explanation has been tried and failed. The dog remained exactly where he was, chest to the coffin, ear pressed to the same spot, breathing steady, unyielding. One of the bikers straightened slowly and spoke again, quieter now. We need a medic, a sharp voice cut in. This is a funeral, not an emergency room. The biker didn't turn, then explain why that dog hasn't stood down. No one could. The officiant looked overwhelmed. This is unprecedented. Yeah, another biker said softly. So is this dog. They didn't rush anything. That was the part that made it unsettling. No panic, no shouting orders, just a slow, deliberate tightening of attention around the coffin. One biker stepped outside and made a call. Another stayed inside, watching Ranger's posture with unnerving focus. Every 30 seconds, Ranger repeated the same sequence. Sniff, pause, ear pressed, stillness. Then, if too much time passed, one sharp bark. Not grief, not noise. A signal. A woman in the front row started crying quietly. This isn't fair, she whispered. We already said goodbye. The biker heard her. He didn't dismiss it. I know, he said gently, but sometimes goodbye comes later than we think. Minutes passed, then the door opened again. A man in a jacket stepped inside. Older, measured, clearly uncomfortable. A local paramedic. Off duty. Summoned quietly. He took in the scene in seconds. The rigid dog, the frozen congregation, the coffin that had become the center of gravity. What's going on, he asked. The biker pointed, not at the people, but at the dog. That. The medic crouched several feet away and watched. He didn't interrupt, didn't speak. He waited. After a full minute, he murmured, that's not mourning behavior. Someone snapped, you too? The medic stood slowly. I've seen dogs mourn. They pace, they vocalize, they collapse. He looked at Ranger. This dog is on duty. The room shifted again. The medic approached cautiously, stopping just short of Ranger's reach. He didn't touch the dog. He didn't touch the coffin. He watched Ranger's nose flare. Then he did something unexpected. He knelt and pressed his ear, not to the coffin, but to the floor beside it. The room held its breath. He stayed there for several seconds. Then he pulled back, frowning. I don't hear anything, he said. Ranger barked, immediate, sharp. The medic's head snapped up. But, he hesitated. That doesn't mean there's nothing. The officiant rubbed his temples. This is spiraling. One biker answered quietly, no, this is clarifying. The medic looked at the coffin again. How long has she been in there? Since early morning, someone said. The medic's face tightened, and she was pronounced, how? Silence. A family member spoke reluctantly. She was found unresponsive, no pulse. They called it. Who's they? The medic asked. Private service. Ranger barked again, twice this time. The medic exhaled slowly. Okay. That single word landed heavy. The biker nodded. You hear it too. I hear doubt, the medic replied. And I see a dog who won't disengage. He straightened. We need to check. The room erupted. You can't open it. This is disrespectful. This is insane, Ranger growled. Low, steady, unwavering. The biker raised his voice, not loud, but firm. Everyone stop. The sound cut through the noise. This dog has been telling us one thing for over 30 minutes, and he said, and no one has told us why he should be wrong. The medic added quietly, if we're wrong, we close it again. If we're right, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Ranger shifted then, just slightly, making space, not leaving, inviting. The biker's pulse spiked. You see that? He just deferred, the medic whispered. That's permission. The officiant looked like he might faint. I can't authorize this. You don't have to, the biker replied. We're not asking permission anymore. A woman sobbed openly now. Please, the biker turned to her gently. If there's even a chance she's still here, don't you want to know? Ranger pressed his ear harder against the coffin, held it there, longer than before. The medic reached out, not to the lid, but to Ranger's shoulder. Ranger didn't flinch, didn't move. The medic swallowed. I'm calling it. We open it. The room went still in a way it never had before, not grief, suspension, every eye fixed on the coffin, every breath shallow. Ranger stood. He placed one paw, just one, on the lid, and waited. If you're still here, it's because something in this doesn't feel finished. If you've ever trusted a dog when everyone else told you to move on, tell me in the comments. And subscribe, because what happens next is the moment everything changes. The chapel no longer felt like a room full of people. It felt like a single breath being held. No one argued now. No one whispered. Every sound had narrowed down to one thing: the dog's breathing. Ranger stood with one paw on the coffin, body angled protectively, eyes fixed on the spot he'd been guarding since the moment he arrived. He wasn't tense the way a dog is when it's afraid. He was calm, decisive. The medic stepped closer, movement slow, deliberate, as if the dog were the authority in the room, which at this point he was. "I'm going to lift the lid," the medic said quietly. "Just enough to check." Ranger didn't bark. He didn't growl. He lowered his head and pressed his ear flat against the wood one last time. Then he stepped back half a pace, not leaving, allowing. The biker nearest the coffin reached for the latch. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. Click. Ranger's ears snapped forward. Another latch. Click. A woman gasped. The medic placed both hands on the lid and paused. Everyone stepped back. No one needed to be told twice. The lid lifted, just an inch at first. Air slipped inside. Ranger barked once, sharp and urgent, but there was something different in it now, not warning. Hope. The medic leaned forward, peering into the gap. His face drained of color. "Oh," he breathed. Ranger surged forward, not violently, not recklessly, just enough to press his nose toward the opening, tail rigid, body trembling with contained urgency. The lid lifted another inch. A sound came out of the coffin. Not loud, not clear. A wet, uneven intake of air. The room shattered. "She's breathing!" someone screamed. The medic swore and flung the lid fully open. Inside, the girl lay pale and still, but her chest moved. Barely. Ranger barked again, high, sharp, almost frantic now, and jumped up, placing his front paws gently on the edge of the coffin, nose inches from her face. He whined softly, a sound he hadn't made all day. The medic reached in immediately, fingers finding a pulse. His voice shook. "It's weak, but it's there." Chaos exploded around them, people shouting, crying, moving, but Ranger stayed focused. He leaned closer, breathing slow and steady, nose nearly touching the girl's cheek. Her eyelids fluttered. Ranger froze. Didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, just the slightest twitch of her fingers. Ranger barked again, joy and urgency colliding, tail finally moving for the first time since he'd entered the chapel. "Get oxygen!" the medic shouted. "Now!" Someone sprinted for the door. Another dropped to their knees sobbing. The officiant backed away, hand over his mouth. Ranger refused to move. Even as hands worked around him, even as they lifted the girl carefully from the coffin, Ranger stayed pressed to her side, nose tracking her breath, body shielding her from the crowd. "She's alive," the medic said again. Louder now. "She's alive." The words didn't feel real. They felt like something borrowed. Ranger walked alongside the stretcher as they carried her out, never touching, never lagging, eyes locked on her face. Outside, sirens wailed, too loud, too sudden, but Ranger didn't flinch. He jumped into the ambulance without being asked and curled against the girl's side, head resting near her shoulder. When a paramedic hesitated, the medic snapped, "Let the dog stay." No one argued. As the doors slammed shut and the ambulance pulled away, the chapel fell into a silence deeper than grief, not mourning. Reckoning. People stared at the open coffin, unable to reconcile what they just witnessed. One of the bikers wiped his eyes. "That dog didn't refuse to leave," he said quietly. "He refused to give up." They said later that the ambulance ride felt endless. Sirens cut through the afternoon like something breaking open. And inside the vehicle, everything moved too fast and not fast enough at the same time. Hands worked with practiced urgency. Oxygen hissed. Monitors flickered to life. Ranger stayed pressed against the girl's side. Not on top of her, not in the way, close enough to feel every shallow breath. The medic glanced down at him once. "Good boy," he said quietly. "You did good." Ranger didn't wag his tail. He didn't look for praise. His eyes never left the girl's face. At the hospital, doors flew open and people rushed forward. Ranger moved only when guided, staying so close that the medic had to step around him instead of pushing him away. "She's hypothermic," someone said. "Pulse is weak but steady. Get her into trauma." When they finally had to separate them, Ranger resisted, not aggressively, not desperately, but with a firm, grounded weight that said not yet. The biker who'd followed in his truck stepped forward. Give him 1 second. The medic hesitated, then nodded. Ranger leaned in and licked the girl's cheek once. Gentle, careful. Then he stepped back. Only then did he allow the doors to close. The waiting room hours blurred together. People cried openly now. Some sat in stunned silence. The open coffin back at the chapel already felt like something from another lifetime. Ranger lay at the biker's feet, head up, ears alert, still working. When a doctor finally emerged, her face told the story before her words did. She has a pulse, she said. She's breathing on her own. A sob ripped through the room. She shouldn't have survived, the doctor continued carefully. But she did. If she'd stayed in that coffin much longer. She didn't finish. No one needed her to. The biker looked down at Ranger and let out a shaky breath. You hear that, boy? Ranger stood, tail wagged once. Then he sat again, waiting. They let him see her later that night. The girl lay in a hospital bed now, color slowly returning to her face, chest rising and falling with real, undeniable life. Tubes and wires surrounded her, but they no longer felt like barriers. They felt like bridges. Ranger approached the bed and stopped, as if asking permission. The girl's mother nodded through tears. It's okay. Ranger stepped closer and rested his head gently on the mattress near the girl's hand. Her fingers twitched, then curled slightly into his fur. Ranger froze, didn't move, didn't breathe. The girl's eyes fluttered open just a crack, confused, distant, but alive. Ranger, her mother whispered, voice breaking. You saved her. Ranger finally wagged his tail, slowly. The bikers didn't say much as they stood near the back of the room, hats in their hands. One of them wiped his face roughly and shook his head. I've seen a lot, he muttered, but never that. Days later, the story spread. Not the way rumors do, twisted and loud, but quietly, from person to person. About a Pong who wouldn't leave, about bikers who refused to ignore him, about a coffin that wasn't supposed to open. Ranger went back to the girl's side every day. When she slept, he lay beneath the bed. When she woke, he sat close enough for her to touch. The doctors called it luck. The family called it a miracle. The bikers called it instinct. Ranger didn't call it anything. He just stayed. Weeks later, the chapel held another gathering. No coffin this time. Just a girl standing unsteadily but smiling, one hand resting on a dog's head. Ranger sat beside her, calm and solid, eyes scanning the room, not for danger now, but out of habit. Someone whispered, that's the dog. Someone else replied, yeah, that's the one who didn't let go. Ranger looked up at the girl when she squeezed his fur, and for the first time since that day, he rested. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about how close goodbye can come before it's too soon, subscribe so stories like this don't get buried in silence. And tell me in the comments, would you have trusted the dog? Everyone came to say goodbye to a girl, but her dog knew it wasn't time yet.